Why, hello everyone. I am Tynan Sylvester, and this is RimWorld Alpha 12. The biggest, juiciest new feature we have right now is actually animal taming. So, you're going to notice we got some cows, who are also a new thing, and some muffalos just chilling back here in the colony. And Oren is going around milking them. Now currently he's milking cows who are asleep, which is a bug. But we'll have that fixed up by the time you're playing this. But yeah, that just shows you one of the basic things. This is the basic thing you can do with these animals, which is you keep them, feed them, and use them for whatever resources they're able to yield. So the cows obviously yield milk, which is an ingredient that can be cooked, or you can drink it raw. Muffalo, you're not going to see it, but they can yield wool. Lots of other animals can also yield wool, like for example, alpacas. They have extra expensive wool, so if you want to run an alpaca farm, that's probably a reasonable idea. And we've got a ton of new animals with different features in them. So there's milk, there's wool shearing. Here is a muffalo calf. So the animals will actually reproduce as well. So you can actually build up a self-sustaining farm and maybe even slaughter them for meat. So I'm going to mark this poor muffalo for slaughter. And we're going to see a farmer hopefully go and take care of him. Okay, here's Oren. He got the order. He's going to go and do the farmer's duty with this muffalo. Here he comes in his red pants. And the muffalo's done. So now you can, just like the old hunter, they slaughter them by... I wrote the code to make them cut their necks, to do a big cut on their neck. But it actually turned off, they just decapitate the whole thing, so that might be in for a while. I find it entertaining. Anyway, so he sliced off the muffalo's head. The muffalo's dead now. And, of course, you can now butcher it with your butcher table and use the meat for whatever you want. So you've got the cows and the alpacas and such in here. But let's talk about some of the new animals that we have besides those. You will notice right here, there is this dog. This dog is named Deficiency. Deficiency is currently being trained by Nelly because Deficiency is marked to learn hauling. This is another thing you can do with your animals, which you can train them in specific skills. So Deficiency is already reasonably well trained. Nelly is her master. Dogs of the Labrador Retriever type, because I love labs, have advanced intelligence, which means they can learn all the skills. Now, smaller dogs, like for example, Yorkies, they could learn the skills, but they can't do some of them because they're too small. So each animal gets a name. There's Magnolia, Norma, and Congo. Some of the other animals, like muffalos, can get names, but it's not automatic. So for something like a pet, they will name it immediately, like a dog. So this is a dog named Deficiency. For something like a muffalo, they'll just let it have a number for a while, but if it happens to come up and nuzzle a colonist and seem really cute, then the colonist might name it. So that's a random event they can do. If you have a pet that goes around, it produces little mood boosts by just interacting with your colonists. So anyways, back to the training thing. Deficiency is currently being trained in Haul, which is the most difficult skill. She's already trained in Obedience, Release, and Rescue. So what these skills do is obedience means that she will come to her master's side if the master is drafted into combat and fight defending that person. So Nelly tried to train Hall but failed. So we'll draft her, and because Nelly is Deficiency's master, Deficiency will follow her around. And if this was in combat, then Deficiency would basically just defend Nelly from any kind of threat. I've tried to done a bunch of AI work to get this following to actually work reasonably smoothly. The dog will actually, or whatever it is, it could be a cow, defense cow, look ahead at your path and try to find a way to meet you and such like. All these little technical details make this work properly. Anyways, that's her first skill. The other skill that Deficiency has is Release. So that means that instead of just defending, imagine you have, like, your dog master. Let's assign some more animals to Nelly. This is the animals screen. We've just assigned a few animals to Nelly, so they should be rushing to her side. So Nellie is now the master of some war Labradors. However, if this is combat, they're not going to leave her side because, you know, they're defensive creatures who want to help her out. So, as you can see, when the drifter comes up, the animals will all go right after it as soon as it's really close, and the drifter gets taken down very quickly. However, if it's an enemy with a ranged weapon, the dogs will just chill and wait. So what you do is you train them in this skill called release, and then Nellie can tick this on, and basically she's saying, go out and attack everyone you see. And so as soon as you click release, all the Labradors will run up and rip apart whoever it is. So this is great with, works great with dogs and things like that. Things like cows are a little slow to use as war animals and pretty ineffective at it. And if you can get a warg for these, you know, the genetically engineered wolf creatures, those will be the most effective ones. Until we start talking about the like super animals that maybe I'll get into later, because we got things like elephants and stuff now. So, for example, yeah, I mean, if you have these as attack animals, you're doing pretty good, but they're very hard to tame and train, of course. Anyways, moving along, another skill that the animals have now is rescue. So this is Deficiency once again, and she's trained in rescue, which means that she'll go and actually help out colonists who are in trouble. So say Sugar here, who's busy training an animal. I'm just going to use a debug command to knock Sugar down. Oh, Sugar is currently wounded on the ground. We'll release the animals, and White, who also knows rescue, has gone and rescued and is now dragging Sugar back to her bed. So the animals can play a role in your combat on the rescue side and on the attack side. We're trying to make them as useful as possible. Finally, the one thing that's being trained is haul. Now, they won't haul continuously like a working colonist because it's just too powerful. But they will intermittently, pretty frequently, go and just grab something and haul it to where it's supposed to be. Now, not all animals can haul the same amount as people. For example, the dog is pretty big, so it can haul 75 at once. If you could train a Yorkshire Terrier in hauling, it would only be able to carry 23 because it's just a tiny little lap dog, basically. So you can train your Yorkie in hauling, but it won't be moving much stuff around very quickly for you. Now, where do you get these animals? You can trade for them. So let's call in some trade ships with the debug commands and talk to an exotic goods trader. Oh yeah, so here's the new trade interface. You can sort things by category, market value, name, quality, hit points percentage. The default is to sort it by category first and then by market value. As you can see, the UI grows bigger to actually match the screen now, so it uses the space. And the silver is always visible. Plus you have buttons, like everyone has been screaming and gnashing their teeth about for like a year, about. You now have a button to sell or buy the maximum or one of any item. So, you can sell your animals if you want. So here's White, a male lab, Beefeater, Deficiency. So we could sell Deficiency for $100, or Orange, the cow. But I'm more interested in what we could buy. It looks like the trader has actually brought a rhinoceros, a 7-year-old female rhinoceros with no injuries, for 853 silver. So I'm going to do that, and in exchange I'm going to sell... See, this makes it easy, because I can sell all my super cheap clothing, which is all the damaged stuff. So just go down the list here. Dump all the really cheap clothing. And keep some of the stuff that's nominally acceptable. The rhinoceros landed over here, but we now have a rhino named Layla, who can be trained in all these useful skills. And rhinos are pretty deadly in combat, which is why they're so expensive. But they'll eat a lot. You do have to feed your animals. Speaking of animal feeding, we actually created a new crop just for them. Now, feeding the animals with human food all winter turned out to be very difficult. In summer, of course, you can just pasture them outside in these large areas, which isn't currently being done in this save game. But in summer, you are able to do that, and that's the most efficient way, because you don't have to farm the grass. You just have to make a big pasture. And that's how ranching works. But in winter, you can't really do that. Everything's frozen and the grass won't really grow back at all. But what you do is you instead just make your growing area and then grow some hay using this stuff called hay grass. So, you know, the colonists will eventually go there and start growing the hay. And the hay grows very quickly and produces or no, it doesn't grow quickly, but it produces a lot of food. And the only downside is that you can't eat the food. Your colonists can't eat hay, but your animals can if they're herbivores. So that's how the feeding works, or at least how it's feasible. You got other kinds of animals too. We can have some chickens. Chickens, of course, lay eggs. And that's a food source. If you want, you can just keep the roosters away. You can separate the roosters out into their own animal areas. Because you can assign areas to animals just as you can assign them to colonists now. And the animals will be kept in that area. Or you can let them lay fertile eggs by letting the roosters hang out with them and mate with them. Either way, that's how chickens do it. And the same with snakes and iguanas and tortoises. They all lay eggs. And there's other kinds of animals. There's capybaras, chinchillas are extra adorable and have super valuable fur. So if you want to run a chinchilla growing operation, you can do that. Camels produce some nice camel hair if you can tame them. Huskies make great loyal dogs. You've seen the Labrador Retrievers. The wargs have a nice evil new look. So they're the most dangerous animals, but they'll only eat meat. Or they're the most dangerous, useful pets, but they'll only eat meat. I've shown you the elephants and the rhinoceros. And monkeys can make useful pets as well. And I want to show you one final extra fun animal, which is the boomalope. These little gas bag buddies grow up these chemical sacs on their backs, which means if they die, just like their smaller brethren, the boom rats, they will explode. But these ones are much, much bigger. So, you can use them as grazing sources of meat, or you can use them as living munitions. Or you can just try not to blow them up when they're wandering around wild and eating your crops. That choice I leave up to you. Another cool feature we have here now is the rooms actually have stats and roles officially. So you turn on this little viewer here and it shows you some of the data. And so now you can see I've turned it on and I've moused over this room. It's Milo's bedroom, and it actually reads out the statistics for its impressiveness, its wealth, the amount of space, the beauty, and the cleanliness. Each one comes with a little label that describes it. So it's kind of dull, not very impressive. The wealth is mediocre. The space is average size, so it's not cramped or anything, compared to something like this where the space is cramped. Beauty, it's ugly and it's dirty. So it's not the most amazing room. Now if you look at something like the hospital, it's rather tight, but it's somewhat rich because it's got a bunch of useful equipment in it. And here's the rec room. It's interesting impressiveness. The wealth is rich because it's got all this valuable stuff in it. And it's rather spacious and rather nice and just a little bit dirty. So these aren't just labels. They do affect a lot of statistics. For example, here's Arlene eating in a mediocre impressiveness dining room, which is somewhat rich, which is good, but it's also very dirty, so that evens it out. So now Arlene just ate there. So now if you go to her thoughts, she'll have no thought from it because it's mediocre and that produces no thought. But if it had been an impressive dining room, she would have a memory for a day or two that makes her happy. And if it was just a terrible dining room, she would have the opposite. And similar effects happen with bedrooms and rec rooms, like Arlene's playing pool here in the interesting rec room. They will acquire thoughts from their accommodation. Just owning a nice bedroom makes them happy. Playing in a nice rec room, and the opposite. You can see when you mouse over, some of these stats are grayed out, and some of them are white. So here for the lab, you can see the cleanliness is white, and the rest of them are grayed out. And that's because impressiveness is an aggregate of all the other stats, so when it matters, all the other ones matter. So for a rec room, the impressiveness is what's important. For a lab, the cleanliness is all that's important, because the cleanliness changes how effectively research can be performed in this area. If you keep your lab clean, you're going to get research done better. We even have things like, here's the hospital, it's dirty, and that means that people are going to get infections there more. you can install a special type of floor or buildings that modify this. So for example here, I'm going to use debug commands and just do this. But you add sterile tile, and the room becomes just a little bit dirty. Now I will use debug again to destroy the dirt, and now it's sterile. Because the room is sterile, anyone being treated in there is going to have a less chance of getting an infection. So it actually produces a reason to keep your hospitals decently clean, which is part of the reason we originally did this. I really want to see colonies where the rooms kind of look like what they're supposed to, and the way to do that is just to implement all those concerns that make people create those rooms that way in real life. There's another passive effect which isn't in the room stats, and that's these buildings that we call facilities. Here are these vitals monitors, and you click on them and they link to a nearby building. In this case, the vitals monitor connects to a hospital bed. And what it does is it improves the treatment of whatever it's assisting. So you place the primary building, which is in this case is the bed, and then the facility improves that building's ability. So another reason to build more stuff. Over here we have the workshops where the tool cabinet is what's important here. These tool cabinets, if placed near workbenches, will improve the efficiency of the work. Now you can actually build tombs. Now I've got a little tomb, but it's just empty. So before you could build a grave in there and they would place the body in there, but this time I'll build a sarcophagus. In fact, I'll build a golden sarcophagus to make it look extra cool. Other people can come and visit their tomb, and that's a joy activity for them. And the amount of joy they get is related to how impressive the tomb is. So yeah, you know, if you got that colonist you're really in love with, you can honor them properly now instead of just throwing them in a pit in the ground. Another cool thing we've added now is new stuff you can find in these ancient temples. So there it is. And as you can see, it spawned with a number of crypto sleep caskets as before, but now it's got these ancient artifacts. This is a psychic insanity lance and a psychic shock lance, and there are several other variations on these as well. And essentially they're just one-use psychic attacks or psychic manipulation tools. So some of them can make one person go insane from any distance, or make every animal on the map go crazy, or so on and so forth. Or make everyone happy for a little while. Those are just a fun little variation that we threw in there for you. And I'm sure some of you have noticed by now that, just to point it out, the interface has been reworked. So instead of all of these screens being hidden behind this overview thing where you had to click it and then click each tab, now they're all equally accessible all the time, and you don't even have to pause the game. So, for example, I'm playing and I want to find a colonist. I can just hit the work tab, it'll open, not take any more space than it actually needs to show everyone, and I can just find who I want, and I want sugar, so I'll click on him and there he is. And all the tabs work this way now. So you can now pack up all the furniture if you want. So I did that with debug, but here we'll do it normally. Say uninstall this. Ford's gonna come by and basically just pick those chairs up and put them in boxes. And you can install them again wherever you want. And that just means you can move furniture around, which is something that you couldn't do before. Didn't make much sense. Now it does. That is, most of it for this alpha. I'm sure there's a few other things that I forgot because we pounded in a ton of new features this time around. Anyways, I really hope you all like it. Let me know what you think on the forums. This is RimWorld. I am Tynan Sylvester. As always, I tweet at Tynan Sylvester. So if you want the latest, just follow me there. And yeah, I hope you like what we've got here. And let's kill a boomalope.